I think all teachers and administrators should receive training regarding the signs of depression, abuse, neglect, etc. Teachers should be encouraged to report anything that appears unusual so that it might be followed up on. I think partnerships with agencies such as the Crisis Center and the 211 cards that the Crisis Center has issued to all Hillsborough County students are vital. I would also encourage partnerships with agencies such as Big Brothers Big Sisters and other mentorship programs. Finally, as a board member, I would stress the need for the school district to work with governmental agencies throughout Hillsborough County to ensure that students' basic services, whether it's food, housing, basic needs are being met so that when students come to school, they're prepared to learn and are able to focus on learning, without having to worry about their basic needs.
That's a good question and something that I think is really important. And luckily, we do have a really good mental health advocate on the board, Karen Perez. That's something she's extremely passionate about, and she's done a really great job to make sure that we're advocating for that. And it's tough when we have budgetary concerns and we're talking about, whether or not we have to cut school staff, but adding more mental health counselors to our schools, making sure that our programs are wraparound services, making sure that we have nurses and social workers available, teaching students and building into our platform conflict resolution. And again, that goes in hand with restorative discipline and restorative practices. There's lots of alternative ways to teach students how to deal with conflict, and prioritizing that and mental health and creating safe places and talking about it and destigmatizing it and prioritizing it by properly staffing it is the forefront of dealing with mental health issues. So I think least restrictive really means that you're allowing the students to kind of intrinsically find what they're interested in, have, again, critical thinking about it. When we're talking about standardized testing, that's restrictive. When we're talking about, one size fits all standards in general, that's restrictive. Again, when I look at what has been beneficial to my son, being in an environment where he can move around, where he can move his body. We have reading centers, and they were based off kind of Montessori style work cycles where students get to pick an activity and move around and circulate. And I think those are really important when we're looking at all of the modalities that we need to engage in our student learning, because every single student learns differently. Some might be a visual learner, some might be auditory, some need that movement within their day. So really creating an environment that allows us to engage all of those modalities and differentiate our learning so that we reach all of our students, and we're not just thinking about standardized testing, but really looking at each student holistically, what their achievements are, what they're motivated by, what they're interested in, and meeting those needs is the least restrictive environment when I think about teaching.
I believe it means that students with disabilities should be offered the special assistance that promotes maximum interaction with the general school population. Basically, it encourages students with disabilities to be educated in a general education setting whenever possible. I've got a cousin who fell into this category, and I think the interaction with the general population it's a win-win for all students, and it encourages students to be more accepting of others. So I think it's a win-win situation for regular students and the students with the disabilities. Having served on the Early Learning Coalition with Hillsborough County, I'm a strong believer in early childhood education. I believe the Early Learning Coalition with the VPK program which is offered free of charge to families is very important. Studies have shown that children who participate in high-quality early childhood education programs develop better language skills, score higher in school readiness tests, and have better social skills once they enter school. As a school board member, I would promote and advocate for investing in these education programs for children at an early age. In addition to early learning programs, I believe we need to ensure that teachers are trained on literacy development and provided the tools to enhance literacy skills, and that schools utilize small group instruction. Children should be comfortable in their reading groups. They shouldn't be intimidated, And I also stress the need for parental involvement and providing volunteer opportunities for volunteers to come and read to children in the schools. I think also collaboration between parents and teachers is critical in providing parents, especially those that may be low income, with reading materials prior to their children even getting into VPK or school. You know, a young age, you know, reading cards, alphabet cards, whatever, providing those to parents, you know, right when they have children is critical, because obviously the earlier you expose children to how to read, and if they come into school prepared, whether it's from, you know, involvement with the parents or the VPK, they're more likely to succeed. If a child starts school and they're behind, it's hard to catch up. So that's what I would propose.
Good question, because as a teacher in the classroom, I have seen so many students kind of figure out how to game those reading softwares to where it would look like they know how to read, but when you actually sit at a reading table with them, they can't even read or pronounce sight words. So as somebody who you know, studied teaching reading, the number one solution to reading is having people there who are teaching reading, educators who understand the fundamentals, whether it's phonemic awareness, whether it's a child who just really needs to understand how to pronounce those phonics, breaking it down, chunking it down, reading strategies, understanding blending. There's an art to teaching reading that teachers go through a lot of training to understand. And when you're taking reading coaches and you're taking teachers' time away from those reading strategies that are so important, and instead you're supplementing with iReady or Achieve 3000, that's not going to strengthen our struggling readers. Those programs are to enhance an already very strong reading program where we have all of the personnel there who are able to identify what each student is struggling with and then figure out how to overcome those challenges. Another piece is really engaging parents in the process and giving them the tools that they need to support their readers. You know, when I was in college, one of the things that we learned is sometimes there's a direct correlation to students' reading achievement to how many books they have in the household. So making sure that we have books and reading materials available in multiple languages is important, and giving, like, again, the parents the resources that they need. A lot of time parents push their students to read, you know, things that they think are educational, and they might, you know, guide them away from reading like the cereal box or, you know, a comic that they like. But actual research shows that you should support your students reading anything that they like. Get as much written material in front of them as they can handle. Follow whatever they're interested in. My son is really interested in Greek mythology. So we get him as much information on that as we possibly can and feed that. So if your students are hungry towards anything, even if it's something that you don't think is necessarily the most educational, give them that support and read to them. That is also another huge indicator, is getting parents to find the time, or even the teachers when they have those online reading things where they take the time and they do a Zoom reading where they read with the students. Making reading fun again is part of it. So again, these are all important reading strategies that you get when you become a teacher and when you understand reading. But I think making sure we have trained professionals who understand it and are there to support our students is the most crucial piece. Really good question. I talked to a parent yesterday, actually, for about 45 minutes in my district, and that was one of her complaints. Is she actually said, you know, since we've kind of beefed up security with the school shooting, she feels less free to go into the classroom and feels disconnected. You know, and I think anytime we have a disconnect like that, it's number one, figuring out alternative ways to communicate and really meeting parents where they're at. I know we have newsletters, you know, but some people like texting more. Some people like social media more. So really figuring out all the different ways that people are communicating and finding out ways that we can engage parents on that, I think, is important. Also finding teachers' comfort level to see, you know, now that we have e-learning, teachers might have more comfort, a bigger comfort level allowing parents to connect digitally. So figuring out, now that we've kind of bridge that gap, if that's an option, would be something I would be open to. But ultimately, I think I'd have to hear more from the PTA about ideas that they have for me as far as how we can bridge that. And that's what's important is, you know, it's really easy to kind of sit up here when you're a candidate and act like you have all the answers. But a lot of times, you know, what you need is input from the people who are there and who are experiencing it. And building those relationships is really important. And not just hearing that feedback, but then figuring out how to take that feedback and make action out of it and enact policies and bring it to the board. One of the things I was talking with a parent who was really frustrated yesterday was building more parental and community committees within our school board. We didn't have those for a while. Then we built into some committees. And then it seems like, you know, since COVID has really become a problem, those have become kind of defunct. And I think, you know, if we have more committees where parents and teachers and, you know, vested parties can come together and discuss these things and then present them to the board and that we can make policy, that's going to be the best way to kind of bridge the gap between parents and the community and what the school board is enacting.
First things I would do as a school board member, and I've mentioned this a number of times on the campaign, is I would form a communication group for District 3, open to parents, business leaders, and others interested in attending. This group would meet on a regular basis in different parts of the district to discuss issues of concern. The meeting times, I would want to make sure the meeting times are convenient to those parents that work. I know a lot of times when it comes to you know, parent groups and everything involving education in schools, they schedule the meetings are scheduled right in the middle of the day, such as the board meetings. You know, honestly, I think board meetings, the board should consider maybe having them later in the day so that the parents that work could attend. But I would have a communication group. I would, during that communication group, I'd answer questions. I'd take questions from the group. I'd have a representative from the school board there to answer questions too. And if I don't know the answer, I'd get the answer and bring it back to them. And then that information gathered, I'd want to share it with at least all the schools within my district. And I think that would be a first step. I also believe that issues such as, I think I'd work with the school board and administrators to improve communication. I think things such as the transportation system and when buses break down. I've heard a number of parents in my district talk about how a bus breaks down and, you know, they're sitting there with their child at the bus stop and they don't find out for 2 hours that the bus has been broken down. So I think with technology today, that's unacceptable. And I think parents should be able to find out immediately what's going on. And if they need to make alternative means or to get their child to school, you know, they should be made aware of that immediately. Because, you know, when a bus is sitting there on the side of the road for 3 hours, the parents should be notified. You know, they shouldn't have to wait 3 hours before they find out. So those are just a few of the things. Thank you.
My husband is a peanut butter fanatic, and we keep ours in the cupboard because it is really hard to spread if you keep it in the refrigerator. And for somebody who's spreading a lot of peanut butter, he wants accessibility. So we keep our peanut butter in the cabinet.
We have it in the fridge and the cupboard. I'm not a big peanut butter eater, but my kids are. I hate to admit it, but as a kid, I always had jelly sandwiches. If I had jelly sandwiches, I ate jelly sandwiches, and I lived on bologna sandwiches and Vienna sausages, which my kids can't understand how I ate the little cans of Vienna sausages. But I brought my lunch every day from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So for a long time after high school, I never ate another bologna sandwich. But yeah, I keep it in the cupboard. We have peanut butter in our refrigerator and in the cupboard, both. Because we have extra cans, because my kids eat a lot of peanut butter.